I am a red fox, known to science as Vulpes vulpes, a member of the family Canidae, which includes wolves, domestic dogs, coyotes, and jackals. But I belong to the subfamily that encompasses the true foxes, a group characterized by lighter builds, longer legs relative to body size, and bushy tails. My species is the largest of the true foxes and the most widespread, found across the entire northern hemisphere and introduced to Australia in the 19th century for sport, a decision that has had profound and lasting ecological consequences. When scientists first described my kind formally, they recognized that we are distinct from other canids not only in size but in behavior, ecology, and social structure, and they placed us in the genus Vulpes, a name derived from the Latin word for fox. Within this genus, there are about 12 species, including the Arctic fox, the kit fox, the fennec fox, and the swift fox. But I am the most adaptable, the most cosmopolitan, and the most familiar to humans across continents. My body is built for versatility, a balance between speed, agility, and endurance that allows me to thrive in environments ranging from Arctic tundra to suburban gardens, from dense forests to open agricultural land. An adult red fox typically measures between 90 and 112 centimeters in total length, including the tail, which alone accounts for 30 to 45 centimeters of that measurement. My tail is not merely decorative. It serves as a counterbalance when I run and turn sharply, as insulation when I curl up to sleep in cold weather, and as a signal flag in social communication with other foxes. My shoulder height ranges from 35 to 40 centimeters, and my weight varies considerably depending on geography, season, and sex, with males generally larger than females. In northern populations, a male may weigh between 5 and 10 kilograms, while a female typically weighs 4 to 7 kilograms. In warmer southern regions, both sexes tend to be lighter. This variation follows a principle known as Bergmann's rule, which predicts that individuals of a species in colder climates will be larger to conserve heat, while those in warmer areas will be smaller to dissipate it more efficiently. My coat is one of my most recognizable features, though the name red fox is somewhat misleading because my coloration varies widely. The classic form, which is most common, features a rusty red to orange coat on the upper body, head, and the outer surfaces of the legs, with white or cream underparts extending from the chin down the throat and belly to the underside of the tail. My chest is often marked with a white bib, and the backs of my ears are black, a detail that helps distinguish me from other canids at a distance. My legs are typically darker, with black stockings on the lower portions, and the tip of my tail is white, a trait that is almost universal in red foxes and serves as a useful field mark. However, not all members of my species are red. Some individuals express a color morph called the cross fox, in which a dark stripe runs down the back and another crosses over the shoulders, creating a cruciform pattern against a lighter background. Another morph, the silver fox, has fur that ranges from deep black with silver-tipped guard hairs to nearly pure black, and this variation has been prized by humans for its beauty and has been the subject of fur farming for over a century. A third morph, the Samson fox, lacks the long guard hairs that give the coat its usual texture, resulting in a woolly appearance, though this is rare. These color variations are controlled by genetics, and all morphs can appear in the same litter, though the red form is dominant and most prevalent in wild populations. The texture of my fur changes with the seasons, a critical adaptation to the climates I inhabit. In autumn, I grow a thick winter coat composed of dense underfur and longer guard hairs that trap air and provide excellent insulation against cold. This winter pelage is at its prime from late November through February, the period when fur quality is highest and historically when trappers targeted my kind most intensively. In spring, as temperatures rise and daylight increases, I begin to shed this heavy coat, and by summer I wear a much thinner, shorter pelage that allows me to stay cool. The molting process can make me look ragged and patchy for a time, and during this period I may appear smaller and less robust than I actually am. My summer coat is redder and less orange than the winter coat, and the underfur is much reduced. This seasonal change is triggered by photoperiod, the length of daylight, rather than temperature alone, ensuring that the molt occurs at the appropriate time regardless of short-term weather fluctuations. My skull and teeth reveal much about my evolutionary history and my ecological role. My skull is elongated and relatively narrow, with a pronounced sagittal crest in older individuals where the powerful jaw muscles attach. My dental formula is 3 incisors, 1 canine, 4 premolars and 2 molars on each side of the upper jaw, and 3 incisors, 1 canine, 4 premolars and 3 molars on each side of the lower jaw, for a total of 42 teeth. The canines are long and slightly curved, designed for gripping and killing prey, while the carnassial teeth, the 4th upper premolar and the 1st lower molar, are blade-like and specialized for shearing meat. Behind the carnassials, I have broader molars that allow me to crush and grind plant material, bones, and insects, reflecting my omnivorous diet. Unlike the highly specialized carnivores such as cats, my dentition and jaw structure allow me to exploit a wide range of food sources, a flexibility that has been key to my success across diverse habitats. My limbs are long and slender, built for endurance and agility rather than raw power. My forelimbs and hindlimbs are digitigrade, meaning I walk on my toes rather than on the flat of my foot, a trait that increases stride length and running efficiency. Each foot has 5 toes, though the first toe, equivalent to a human thumb, is reduced and does not reach the ground. The remaining 4 toes bear the weight and are tipped with non-retractable claws that provide traction and are used for digging. My gait is varied depending on the situation. At a walk, I move with a deliberate, almost cat-like grace, placing each foot carefully and keeping my body low. When trotting, which is my most efficient traveling gait, I cover ground steadily at speeds of 6 to 13 kilometers per hour, and I can maintain this pace for extended periods. When I need to accelerate, I can reach sprint speeds of up to 48 kilometers per hour in short bursts, though I am not built for sustained high-speed chases like a greyhound or a cheetah. Instead, I rely on quick bursts, sudden changes of direction, and my ability to navigate complex terrain, including dense underbrush, rocky outcrops, and even shallow water. One of my most remarkable physical abilities is my capacity to leap and pounce with precision. When hunting small mammals beneath snow or tall grass, I use a behavior known as mousing, in which I stand still, listening and watching intently, then launch myself high into the air in a characteristic arc, coming down forepaws first onto the location of the prey. This technique requires acute hearing and an ability to calculate trajectory and distance rapidly. Research has shown that I am most successful when I orient my pounce toward magnetic north, a behavior that suggests I may use the Earth's magnetic field as a rangefinder to judge distance when I cannot see the prey directly. This sensitivity to magnetic fields is not fully understood, but experiments have demonstrated a statistically significant preference for north or northeast-facing pounces, and success rates are higher when I align my jump in these directions. This may involve magnetoception, a sensory ability documented in birds and some other mammals, though the exact mechanism in foxes remains an active area of research. My senses are finely tuned to my predatory and scavenging lifestyle. My vision is adapted for low-light conditions, with a high density of rod cells in the retina that allow me to see well at dawn, dusk, and night, the times when I am most active. My eyes are positioned somewhat laterally on my head, giving me a wide field of view that helps detect movement from many angles, though my binocular vision, the overlap that provides depth perception, is narrower than that of a cat. I have a tapetum lucidum, a reflective layer behind the retina that bounces light back through the photoreceptors, enhancing night vision and causing my eyes to glow greenish or yellow when caught in a beam of light. My color vision is limited compared to humans, with only 2 types of cone cells, making me dichromatic. I see blues and yellows reasonably well but have difficulty distinguishing reds and greens, which appear as shades of gray or brown. This does not hinder me in my natural environment, as my other senses compensate, and much of my hunting occurs in low light where color is less relevant. My sense of hearing is exceptionally acute, perhaps my most important sense for hunting. My large, triangular, upright ears can rotate independently to pinpoint the source of sounds, and I am sensitive to frequencies up to 65 kilohertz, well into the ultrasonic range that includes the vocalizations and movements of rodents. I can hear a mouse squeaking or scratching beneath a layer of snow or soil, and this auditory information guides my pouncing behavior. The pinny, the external parts of my ears, funnel sound toward the auditory canal, and the black markings on the back may help reduce glare or serve as visual signals to other foxes. My ability to detect faint rustling, the high-pitched calls of voles, and the movement of insects gives me a significant advantage in locating prey that is hidden from sight. My sense of smell is also highly developed, though perhaps not as refined as that of a bloodhound or a wolf. I have a moist, black nose with a large olfactory epithelium inside the nasal cavity, packed with scent receptors. I use scent to locate food, identify other foxes, assess reproductive status, mark territory, and navigate my environment. I can detect carrion from considerable distances downwind, and I use my nose to investigate burrows, trails, and feeding sites. Scent marking is a critical component of my communication system, and I deposit urine and feces at strategic locations throughout my home range. I also have scent glands, most notably the supracaudal gland located on the upper surface of my tail near the base, which produces a distinctive musky odor often compared to that of violets or skunks, though the intensity and character vary among individuals and are influenced by diet and health. This gland is more prominent in the breeding season and may play a role in social and sexual communication. I live across an enormous geographic range, the largest of any terrestrial carnivore, spanning North America, Europe, Asia, and North Africa, and I have been introduced to Australia, where I am now widespread and considered an invasive species with severe impacts on native wildlife. In the native range, I occupy virtually every type of habitat except true deserts and the highest mountain peaks, though I am most abundant in mixed landscapes that combine woodlands, grasslands, wetlands, and human-modified environments such as farmland and suburban areas. I am found from sea level to elevations above 4,500 meters in some mountain ranges of Central Asia. My ability to exploit such varied habitats is a testament to my behavioral flexibility, my generalist diet, and my tolerance for human presence. In North America, I am found from the Arctic Circle in Alaska and Canada south to the southern United States, though my presence in the far south and in parts of the Great Plains is more recent and reflects range expansion. I thrive in the mixed forests of the Northeast, the agricultural landscapes of the Midwest, the foothills and valleys of the Rocky Mountains, and increasingly in suburban and even urban areas where I find abundant food in the form of rodents, garbage, pet food, and compost. In Europe, I am ubiquitous, from the boreal forests of Scandinavia to the Mediterranean scrublands of Spain and Greece, from the farmlands of France and Germany to the cities of London, Paris, Berlin, and Zurich, where I have become a common sight in parks, gardens, and railway embankments. In Asia, my range extends from the Middle East through the steppes and forests of Russia to China, Japan, and Southeast Asia, and I occupy a similarly wide range of habitats, from temperate forests to semi-arid shrublands. In North Africa, I am found in the mountains and coastal regions of Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya, where I inhabit areas with sufficient cover and prey. In Australia, my presence is a case study in the ecological consequences of species introductions. Red foxes were deliberately released in Victoria in the 1850s for fox hunting, a pastime imported from Britain, and they spread rapidly across the continent, reaching Western Australia by the early 20th century. I have since become one of the most damaging invasive species in Australia, implicated in the decline and extinction of numerous native mammals, birds, and reptiles. The native fauna, having evolved in the absence of placental mammalian predators, had few defenses against me, and species such as the bilby, the numbat, the malleefowl, and many small wallabies and bandicoots have suffered catastrophic population declines in areas where I am abundant. Control programs, including baiting, shooting, and exclusion fencing, are widespread, but I remain entrenched across most of the continent except for Tasmania, where I am not yet established, and the far north, where the tropical climate and different prey base have limited my spread. Within any given region, I select specific microhabitats based on the availability of food, cover, denning sites, and water. I prefer edges, the boundaries between different habitat types, because these areas support high densities and diversity of prey. For example, the edge between a forest and a meadow, or between cropland and a hedgerow, concentrates small mammals, ground-nesting birds, insects, and fruiting plants in a relatively small area, making hunting more efficient. I also favor areas with dense ground cover such as tall grass, shrubs, brambles, and fallen logs, which provide concealment from larger predators and a network of trails and refuges. I avoid wide-open spaces where I am exposed, though I will cross them when necessary, typically at night or in the early morning when visibility is low and human activity is minimal. My activity pattern is primarily crepuscular and nocturnal, meaning I am most active during twilight hours and throughout the night, though I adjust this pattern based on local conditions, season, food availability, and human disturbance. In areas with little human presence, I may be active during the day, especially in winter when daylight is short and food is scarce. In heavily urbanized or persecuted environments, I become almost exclusively nocturnal, avoiding times when humans and domestic dogs are out. My daily routine begins at dusk, when I emerge from my resting place, stretch, groom, and begin to patrol my territory. I move along familiar trails and pathways, stopping frequently to scent mark, listen, and scan for prey. I am opportunistic, investigating any potential food source, from a rustle in the grass that may signal a vole to a garbage bin that may contain discarded food. Hunting is a mix of stealth, patience, and explosive action. When I detect prey by sound or scent, I freeze, tilting my head to refine the location. Then I creep forward slowly, belly low to the ground, minimizing noise and movement. If the prey is above ground and visible, I may stalk to within a few meters before launching a rapid sprint and pounce. If the prey is underground or beneath snow, I rely on my hearing and possibly magnetic cues, then execute the characteristic high leap and downward strike. My success rate varies, typically between 20 and 40% depending on prey type, habitat, and my experience, but I hunt frequently enough that I capture sufficient food. When I make a kill, I consume small prey immediately, but if the item is larger or if I have already eaten, I may cache it, burying it in a shallow scrape covered with soil, leaves, or snow. I remember the locations of these caches and return to them later, often within a day or two, though some caches are forgotten or are raided by other scavengers such as ravens, crows, or other foxes. My diet is remarkably varied and changes with season, location, and availability. I am an omnivore, consuming animal prey, invertebrates, fruits, seeds, and even fungi. Small mammals, particularly rodents, are the foundation of my diet in most regions. Voles, mice, lemmings, rats, and rabbits are all important prey, and in some studies, rodents have comprised over 70% of my diet by biomass during certain seasons. I am an efficient mouser, capable of catching multiple individuals in a single night when rodent populations are high. I also prey on birds, especially ground-nesting species and their eggs, and I am adept at raiding the nests of ducks, pheasants, grouse, and songbirds. I can climb surprisingly well, using my claws and agility to ascend low branches or fences to reach bird nests, though I am not as arboreal as a marten or a cat. Insects and other invertebrates are consumed in large quantities, particularly in summer and autumn when beetles, grasshoppers, crickets, earthworms, and caterpillars are abundant. I may spend hours hunting beetles in pastures or turning over cow dung to find the insects beneath. Earthworms are a favored food in wet conditions, and I detect them by sound and movement, plucking them from the soil surface or shallow burrows. I also eat carrion, which can be a significant part of my diet, especially in winter when live prey is harder to catch. I scavenge the carcasses of deer, livestock, roadkill, and other animals, and I am often seen along roadsides at dawn checking for animals killed by vehicles during the night. I am not above scavenging from human sources, including garbage bins, compost heaps, bird feeders, and pet food left outside. And in urban areas, this human-provided food can constitute a large proportion of my intake. Fruits and berries are important seasonal foods. In late summer and autumn, I consume large quantities of blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, cherries, apples, plums, grapes, and rose hips. I pick berries delicately with my front teeth and tongue, and I swallow them whole or crush them lightly. I play a role in seed dispersal for many of these plants, as the seeds pass through my digestive system unharmed and are deposited in my feces, often far from the parent plant. I also eat other plant material, including grasses, sedges, tubers, and acorns, though these are generally less nutritious and serve more as filler or are consumed when preferred foods are scarce. My feeding behavior is influenced by the availability and energy content of different food types. When rodents are abundant, I focus on them because they provide high-quality protein and fat. When rodents are scarce, I switch to alternative prey or plant foods, demonstrating a key survival strategy known as dietary plasticity. This ability to shift my diet allows me to persist in environments where specialists would struggle. For example, in coastal areas, I may hunt seabirds, raid seabird colonies for eggs and chicks, and scavenge marine carrion such as fish and seal carcasses washed ashore. In agricultural areas, I may consume grain, especially during the harvest season when waste grain is abundant in fields, and I have been observed eating sunflower seeds, maize, and oats directly from crops. Water is a necessity, and I drink regularly when free water is available, visiting streams, ponds, puddles, and even garden bird baths. I may also obtain moisture from my food, particularly from succulent fruits and the body fluids of prey. In winter, I eat snow to meet my water needs, though this requires energy to melt and warm the snow inside my body. I am generally cautious around water and do not swim unless necessary, though I am capable of crossing rivers and lakes when dispersing or when pursued. Predation and threats shape my behavior and ecology profoundly. I am both a predator and prey, occupying a middle position in many food webs. My primary natural predators are larger carnivores. In North America, wolves, coyotes, mountain lions, and bears kill red foxes, and in some areas, coyotes are the leading cause of mortality. Coyotes are particularly aggressive toward me, viewing me as a competitor for food and sometimes killing me on sight, though they do not always consume me after the kill. Wolves also kill foxes, and in areas where wolf populations have recovered, fox numbers have declined. In Europe and Asia, wolves, lynxes, and eagles are significant predators. Golden eagles are capable of killing adult foxes, an eagle-owl species. Large and powerful nocturnal raptors also prey on me, especially on young or inexperienced individuals. In Australia, dingoes and large monitor lizards may kill foxes, though I have few natural predators there, which is one reason for my success as an invasive species. Domestic dogs pose a significant threat, particularly hunting dogs used in organized fox hunts or dogs that accompany hunters, farmers, or hikers. Dogs may chase, catch, and kill foxes or injure them severely, and many foxes die from wounds sustained in dog attacks. Humans are by far my greatest source of mortality. I'm hunted for sport, for fur, for predator control, and out of retaliation for real or perceived damage to livestock and game. Shooting, trapping, snaring, poisoning, and gassing of dens are all methods used to kill foxes, and in some regions, hunting is intensive and sustained. Vehicle collisions are a major cause of death, particularly in areas with high road density, and many foxes are struck and killed while crossing roads at night or scavenging roadkill. Disease also affects me, including rabies, canine distemper, sarcoptic mange, and parasitic infections. Rabies is a viral disease that affects the central nervous system and is almost always fatal once symptoms appear. In areas where rabies is endemic, such as parts of Eastern Europe and Asia, foxes are important vectors, and rabid foxes may exhibit abnormal behavior such as loss of fear, aggression, or daytime activity, increasing the risk of transmission to humans and domestic animals. Oral rabies vaccination programs, in which vaccine-laden baits are distributed across the landscape, have been successful in controlling rabies in fox populations in Western Europe and parts of North America, leading to significant declines in rabies incidence. Canine distemper is another viral disease that causes respiratory, gastrointestinal, and neurological symptoms and can be fatal, particularly in young foxes. It is transmitted through direct contact or aerosols, and outbreaks can cause significant mortality in local fox populations. Sarcoptic mange, caused by a parasitic mite that burrows into the skin, is perhaps the most visible and debilitating disease affecting foxes. Infected individuals lose fur, develop thick, crusted skin, and suffer from intense itching, leading to self-inflicted wounds, secondary infections, malnutrition, and often death. Mange is highly contagious and spreads through direct contact or contaminated environments, and it can cause population crashes in some areas. Treatment is possible with anti-parasitic drugs, but treating wild foxes is challenging, and many succumb to the disease. Parasitic worms, including roundworms, tapeworms, and lungworms, infect foxes and can cause illness, particularly in young or weakened individuals. One parasite of particular concern is Echinococcus multilocularis, a tapeworm whose adult stage lives in the intestines of foxes and whose larval stage infects rodents and occasionally humans, causing a serious and potentially fatal disease called alveolar echinococcosis. Foxes become infected by eating rodents containing the larvae, and they shed eggs in their feces, contaminating the environment. This parasite is widespread in parts of Europe, Asia, and North America, and it is a public health concern in endemic areas. My social structure is more complex than once believed and varies depending on resource distribution and population density. I am often described as solitary, and it is true that I spend much of my time alone, hunting and patrolling independently. However, I am also capable of living in social groups consisting of a mated pair, and in some cases, additional adult females, often the daughters of the breeding pair from previous years. These groups share a territory and a den system, and the subordinate females, known as non-breeding vixens, may assist in rearing the pups of the dominant female, a behavior known as alloparenting or helping behavior. This cooperative breeding is not universal and appears to be more common in areas where food is abundant and territories are stable, allowing the dominant pair to tolerate the presence of related adults. The basic social unit is the mated pair, which typically forms in winter and may last for life, though pair bonds can dissolve if one partner dies or if reproductive success is poor. The male, known as a dog fox, and the female, known as a vixen, establish and defend a territory together. Territory size varies enormously depending on habitat quality and food availability, ranging from less than 1 square kilometer in resource-rich urban areas to over 50 square kilometers in marginal habitats such as tundra or mountains. Territories are marked with scent, particularly urine and feces deposited at prominent locations such as trails, junctions, rocks, stumps, and tussocks. I also scratch the ground with my hind feet after defecating, leaving a visual mark and distributing scent from glands between my toes. These marks communicate occupancy to neighboring foxes and help maintain spacing, though territories often overlap at the edges, and boundaries are negotiated through scent marking and occasional direct encounters. Territoriality is most pronounced during the breeding season, from late winter through spring, when I am least tolerant of intruders. During this time, I patrol boundaries frequently, renew scent marks, and may engage in vocal confrontations or chases if I encounter a stranger. Outside the breeding season, territorial defense is more relaxed, and I may tolerate transient foxes passing through, particularly juveniles dispersing from natal areas. In areas with very high fox densities, such as some cities, territories may be small and densely packed, and the social system can become more fluid, with overlapping ranges and more frequent interactions among individuals. Communication among foxes involves vocalizations, body language, and scent. I am more vocal than many people realize, and I produce a variety of sounds that serve different functions. The most well-known is the vixen scream, a loud, eerie, high-pitched shriek that is often heard on winter nights during the mating season. This call, sometimes described as sounding like a human scream, is given by females and is thought to advertise receptivity or to attract males. It is unsettling to those unfamiliar with it and has given rise to many legends and misconceptions. Males also vocalize, producing a lower-pitched, stuttering bark or howl. Another common sound is the triple bark, often given as an alarm or when a fox is disturbed, consisting of 3 sharp, high-pitched barks in quick succession. I also produce a variety of whines, whimpers, growls, and geckering sounds, the latter being a rapid, chattering call given during aggressive or competitive encounters, such as when 2 foxes dispute over food or territory. Body language is subtle but important. Dominance is communicated through direct stares, upright posture, raised tail, and confident movement, while submission is shown through lowered body, flattened ears, tucked tail, and averted gaze. Playful interactions, especially among juveniles or between mates, involve bounding, pouncing, chasing, and gentle mouthing, and these behaviors help establish social bonds and practice hunting skills. Grooming is another social behavior, and mated pairs or family members may groom each other, nibbling and licking the fur, especially around the head, ears, and neck, areas that are difficult for an individual to reach alone. Reproduction is seasonal, timed so that pups are born in spring when weather improves and prey becomes more abundant. The breeding season begins in late December or January in most regions, though timing varies with latitude, occurring earlier in the south and later in the north. Vixens enter estrus, a period of fertility, once a year, and this estrus lasts only a few days, typically 1 to 6 days, during which mating must occur for conception to happen. The timing of estrus is synchronized among females in a given area, triggered by the increasing photoperiod after the winter solstice. Males become sexually active earlier, with testosterone levels rising and testes enlarging beginning in late autumn, and they are ready to mate by the time females come into estrus. Courtship involves increased scent marking, vocalizations, and close following of the vixen by the dog fox. The pair may travel together, rest near each other, and engage in mutual grooming and play. When the vixen is receptive, copulation occurs, and like other canids, the male and female become locked together in a copulatory tie that can last from a few minutes to over an hour. This tie is caused by the swelling of the bulbous glandes, a structure at the base of the male's penis, inside the female's reproductive tract, and it ensures that sperm are delivered effectively. After mating, the pair may remain together, or the male may mate with additional females if they are available, though genetic studies suggest that extra-pair paternity is relatively rare, and most litters are sired by the territorial male. Gestation lasts approximately 51 to 53 days, and in most regions, pups are born in March or April. Litter size ranges from 1 to 12 pups, though 4 to 6 is typical. Larger litters are more common in areas where food is abundant and female body condition is good, and smaller litters occur when resources are limited or females are young or old. The vixen selects a den for giving birth, often a burrow system that she has dug herself or refurbished from an old rabbit, badger, or marmot burrow. Dens are usually located in areas with good cover, well-drained soil, and proximity to food and water. Some dens are simple, consisting of a single chamber at the end of a short tunnel, while others are extensive, with multiple entrances, tunnels, and chambers, and these complex dens may be used by generations of foxes over many years. In urban areas, dens may be located under sheds, decks, or in dense shrubbery. Pups are born blind, deaf, and covered in short, dark brown or gray fur. They are entirely dependent on the vixen for warmth, food, and protection. The vixen remains in or near the den almost constantly for the first week or two, nursing the pups and keeping them warm. The dog fox and any helper vixens bring food to the nursing mother, leaving it at the den entrance or nearby, and the vixen consumes this food to maintain her milk production. As the pups grow, their eyes open at around 10 to 14 days, their ears open shortly after, and they begin to develop the reddish coat coloration, though they remain much darker than adults for several weeks. At about 3 to 4 weeks of age, the pups begin to venture out of the den entrance, exploring the immediate surroundings under the watchful eyes of the adults. They are playful and curious, engaging in wrestling, pouncing, and chasing games that help develop coordination, strength, and social skills. The adults begin to bring solid food to the den, initially regurgitating partially digested food, which is easier for the pups to consume, and later bringing whole prey items such as mice, voles, and birds. The pups learn to recognize, handle, and consume these items, and sibling competition for food is common, with larger or more assertive pups often getting the best pieces. Weaning occurs gradually over several weeks, typically complete by 8 to 10 weeks of age, though pups may continue to beg for regurgitated food and may nurse occasionally if the vixen permits. As the pups become more independent, the adults spend less time at the den, and by midsummer, the family may abandon the natal den and move to above-ground resting sites, often in dense vegetation or in temporary dens. The pups continue to grow rapidly, and by late summer, they are nearly adult size, though they are still distinguishable by their lankier build, darker coat, and less bushy tail. Parental care is extensive and lasts through the summer and into autumn. The adults continue to provide food, teach hunting skills, and protect the pups from predators. The pups follow the adults on foraging trips, observing and imitating their behavior, and they practice hunting on their own, initially targeting easy prey such as insects, earthworms, and nestling birds. Hunting skills improve with practice, and by autumn, the young foxes are capable hunters, though their success rate is lower than that of experienced adults. Mortality is high during the first year of life, with estimates ranging from 50 to 75% of pups dying before their first birthday due to predation, starvation, disease, and accidents. Dispersal typically occurs in autumn, from September through November, when the young foxes leave the natal territory to seek their own ranges. Dispersal distances vary widely, from just a few kilometers to over 100 kilometers or more in some cases, and males tend to disperse farther than females, a pattern common in mammals that reduces the risk of inbreeding. Some females, especially in areas with high-quality habitat and low fox density, may remain in the natal territory and become subordinate helpers, as mentioned earlier. Dispersing juveniles face high mortality as they travel through unfamiliar terrain, cross roads, encounter established territorial foxes, and must find unoccupied or low-quality areas to settle. Those that survive and establish a territory may breed in their first year if they find a mate and suitable habitat, though many do not breed until their second year. Sexual maturity is reached at around 10 months of age, and most foxes have the potential to breed in their first winter following birth, though actual breeding success depends on social status, body condition, and the availability of mates and territories. In stable populations, a significant proportion of yearlings do not breed, either because they are subordinate helpers or because they have not yet secured a territory and mate. Lifespan in the wild is generally short, with few foxes living beyond 3 to 4 years, though individuals in low mortality environments, such as protected areas with abundant food and few predators, may live to 5, 6, or even 10 years. Captive foxes, where they are protected from predation, disease, and food scarcity, have lived to 14 years or more, indicating that the potential lifespan is much longer than is typically realized in wild populations. My ecological role is multifaceted and significant. As a predator, I exert top-down control on populations of small mammals, especially rodents, and this can have cascading effects on vegetation and other components of the ecosystem. For example, in agricultural landscapes, I help control rodent populations that might otherwise cause significant crop damage, and studies have estimated the economic value of this pest control service to be substantial. However, the relationship is complex, as I also prey on beneficial animals such as ground-nesting birds, and in some systems, my predation can be a significant limiting factor on bird populations, particularly species already in decline due to habitat loss or other pressures. I also serve as a prey item for larger predators, transferring energy up the food chain. And as a scavenger, I recycle nutrients by consuming carrion that might otherwise decompose slowly. My caching behavior redistributes food across the landscape, and forgotten caches may be scavenged by other animals or may decompose, returning nutrients to the soil. As a seed disperser, I contribute to plant community dynamics, particularly for fruiting plants, and this role may be important in the regeneration of certain shrubs and trees. I'm also a host for a variety of parasites and pathogens, some of which I share with domestic animals and humans, making me a component of disease ecology. My burrows provide habitat for other species, including insects, amphibians, small mammals, and even birds. And abandoned fox dens are sometimes used by badgers, rabbits, or other burrowing animals. In some ecosystems, I compete with other predators such as badgers, martens, or raptors for food, and I may also compete with scavengers such as corvids and raccoons. My relationship with humans is long, complex, and deeply ambivalent. I have been a figure in human mythology, folklore, and culture for thousands of years, often portrayed as cunning, clever, and elusive, traits that reflect my adaptability and my ability to evade hunters. In many traditions, I am a trickster figure, outwitting other animals and humans through guile rather than strength. In some cultures, I am respected or admired, while in others, I am feared or reviled, particularly where I am perceived as a threat to livestock or game. Humans have hunted foxes for various reasons throughout history. In some regions, fox fur has been highly valued for its warmth and beauty, and trapping and fur farming have been significant economic activities. The fur trade reached its peak in the 20th century, with millions of foxes killed annually for their pelts, and silver fox farming became a major industry in North America, Europe, and Russia. Selective breeding of farmed foxes for docility and coat color has produced a variety of color morphs, and, in one famous long-term experiment in Russia, has resulted in foxes that display dog-like behaviors, including friendliness toward humans, floppy ears, and curled tails, demonstrating how rapidly domestication-related traits can evolve under strong selection. In the British Isles, fox hunting with hounds became a highly ritualized sport among the aristocracy and landed gentry, involving packs of hounds, horses, and a complex social structure. This practice has been controversial and is now banned in several countries, including England, Scotland, and Wales, though trail hunting, in which hounds follow an artificial scent rather than a live fox, continues, and enforcement of the ban has been contentious. Proponents of hunting have argued that it is a form of pest control and a cultural tradition, while opponents have condemned it as cruel and unnecessary. Fox control programs are widespread in agricultural areas, where I am blamed for predation on lambs, poultry, and game birds. The extent of my impact on livestock is debated, with some studies showing that foxes kill relatively few healthy lambs, and that most lamb predation occurs on weak, sick, or stillborn individuals, while other studies and anecdotal reports suggest that foxes can cause significant losses under certain conditions, particularly where lambing occurs in open fields and supervision is minimal. Poultry predation is more clear-cut, as I am adept at raiding chicken coops, and a single fox can kill multiple birds in one night, a behavior known as surplus killing, which appears wasteful but may be an instinctive response to abundant, easily captured prey that I would normally cache for later consumption. In Australia, as mentioned earlier, I am considered one of the worst invasive species, and substantial resources are devoted to controlling my populations in an effort to protect native wildlife. Control methods include poisoning with sodium fluorosidate, known as 1080, a compound to which native Australian animals have some tolerance, but to which I am highly susceptible, as well as shooting, trapping, and exclusion fencing around critical habitats such as breeding sites for endangered species. Despite these efforts, I remain widespread and abundant in most regions, and eradication is not considered feasible across the entire continent. In urban and suburban areas, I have become a familiar presence, and my ability to exploit human-modified environments has led to dense populations in cities such as London, Berlin, Toronto, and Melbourne. Urban foxes live in parks, gardens, cemeteries, railway embankments, and even industrial sites, and they den under buildings, in culverts, and in thick vegetation. I have adapted my behavior to minimize risk, becoming more nocturnal, more tolerant of noise and lights, and more adept at avoiding traffic. I feed on a wide variety of urban food sources, including bird feeders, fruit trees, compost, rubbish bins, and food left out for pets, and I scavenge extensively around restaurants, markets, and food outlets. Some people actively feed urban foxes, either intentionally or inadvertently, and this can lead to habituation, increased population density, and conflicts. Urban living brings me into close contact with humans, and opinions about my presence are divided. Some residents appreciate seeing wildlife in the city and enjoy observing my behavior, while others view me as a nuisance, expressing concerns about noise, particularly the vixen scream, the digging of gardens, the disturbance of rubbish, the smell of scent marking, and the perceived risk to pets and children. Attacks on humans are extremely rare and usually involve individuals that are sick, cornered, or habituated through feeding, and serious injuries are exceptionally uncommon. Nonetheless, media coverage of such incidents can be sensational and can fuel negative perceptions. Conservation status varies regionally. Globally, I am classified as least concern by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, reflecting my large population size, vast range, and adaptability. However, this overall assessment masks regional variation. In parts of my range, I am abundant and even considered overabundant, while in other areas, I face pressures from habitat loss, persecution, and disease. In Australia, I am a target for eradication, while in parts of Europe and North America, I am protected by hunting regulations that limit the methods and seasons in which I can be killed, and in some urban areas I am fully protected. Threats to my populations include ongoing habitat loss and fragmentation due to agricultural intensification, urban sprawl, and infrastructure development. While I am adaptable, the loss of critical habitats such as hedgerows, woodlands, and wetlands reduces the availability of denning sites and prey. Road mortality is significant and is increasing in many areas as traffic volumes grow. Disease, particularly rabies and mange, can cause local population declines. Climate change may affect me in complex ways, potentially altering prey availability, shifting the timing of breeding, and changing the distribution of suitable habitat, though I am likely to be less vulnerable than more specialized species. There are several misconceptions about me that persist in popular understanding. One is that I am purely a threat to livestock and game, and that my presence is incompatible with farming or conservation. In reality, my impact is highly context-dependent, and in many situations, the benefits I provide through rodent control and scavenging outweigh the costs. Another misconception is that I am a solitary, asocial animal, when in fact I am capable of forming complex social groups and cooperative relationships. A third misconception is that I am a major rabies reservoir in North America, when in fact, in regions where rabies is present, I am one of several vectors, and in many parts of North America, Rabies has been effectively controlled or eliminated in fox populations through vaccination programs. A fourth misconception is that urban foxes are dangerous to humans, particularly children, when in fact the risk is minimal, and coexistence is generally peaceful when people take basic precautions such as securing rubbish bins and not feeding foxes. A day in my life might unfold as follows. As the sun sets and the light fades, I stir from my resting place, a sheltered spot beneath a dense thicket or in a shallow depression I have dug in soft soil, lined with dry grass and leaves for comfort. I stretch my forelegs, then my hind legs yawn widely and shake my body, fluffing my fur. I groom briefly, nibbling at my paws and licking my chest and flanks, removing dirt and checking for ticks or other parasites. I lift my nose and sample the air, detecting the faint scent of moisture, the earthy smell of the forest floor, and the distant odor of a deer carcass that I investigated 2 days ago, now diminished and probably consumed by crows and other scavengers. I move out from my resting place with a purposeful trot, my ears swiveling independently, listening for the sounds of prey. The forest is alive with the evening chorus, birds settling for the night, insects beginning their nocturnal activity, and the rustling of small mammals emerging from burrows and nests. I follow a well-worn trail, a narrow path that I and other animals have used repeatedly, and I pause at a prominent rock to sniff the scent marks left by another fox, a male whose territory overlaps mine at this boundary. His scent is several hours old, and I add my own urine mark on top of his, a subtle communication of my presence. I continue along the trail, moving into a meadow where the grass is tall and the ground is uneven with tussocks and shallow depressions. This is good hunting ground, and I slow my pace, walking now with exaggerated care, each foot placed deliberately, my body low. I hear a faint scratching sound, then a high-pitched squeak. I freeze, head tilted, triangulating the source. The sound is coming from a spot about 10 meters ahead, slightly to my left. I watch motionless and see a slight movement in the grass. A vole, perhaps, or a young rabbit. I wait, conserving energy, letting the prey settle into a routine. Then, in a single fluid motion, I spring forward, covering the distance in 2 bounds and launch myself into the air, arcing high, forepaws extended, and I come down hard on the spot where the sound originated. I feel the impact of a small body beneath my paws, and I snap my jaws, catching the vole by the back. It struggles briefly, then goes limp. I carry it a few steps away from the capture site, set it down, and eat it quickly, crunching through the bones and fur, swallowing the pieces whole. I hunt for another hour in the meadow, catching 2 more voles and 1 wood mouse, and I cache a 4th vole in a shallow scrape at the base of a tree, covering it with leaves. My hunger is satisfied for the moment, and I move on, trotting along the edge of the forest, heading toward a farm where I know there is a compost pile that sometimes contains food scraps. I reach the farm buildings and circle them cautiously, staying in the shadows, avoiding the pools of light cast by the security lamps. I approach the compost pile, which smells strongly of rotting vegetables and fruit. I dig into the pile with my forepaws, pulling aside layers of grass clippings and potato peels, and I find a half-eaten apple and some stale bread. I eat the apple and carry the bread a short distance away before consuming it. As I finish the bread, I hear the sound of a door opening and the bark of a dog. I flatten my ears, tuck my tail, and slink back into the darkness, moving quickly but silently along a hedgerow. The dog continues barking, but it is confined to a fenced yard, and I am already beyond its reach. I feel no fear, only caution, and I continue my patrol. I move into a wooded area where there is a stream, and I pause to drink, lapping the cold, clear water with my tongue. The stream is a good place to hunt amphibians, and I wade into the shallows, watching for movement. I see a frog and pounce on it, but it escapes with a splash, and I shake the water from my paws, deciding not to pursue it further. I move upstream, crossing the water at a shallow ford, and I enter a different section of my territory, an area of scrubby hillside with scattered rocks and patches of bramble. Here, the hunting is more difficult as the ground is rocky and the cover is sparse, but I know this area well, and I investigate several burrow entrances, sniffing for signs of recent activity. One burrow smells strongly of rabbit, and I dig at the entrance, enlarging the opening and reaching my head into the tunnel. I hear movement deep inside, but the tunnel is too long and narrow for me to reach the occupant, and after a few minutes of digging, I give up and move on. I mark the entrance with a spray of urine, a signal to others and a reminder to myself. As the night progresses, the temperature drops and a light mist forms in the low-lying areas. I curl up beneath a bramble thicket for a short rest, wrapping my tail around my nose to conserve warmth. I doze lightly, my ears still alert, and I wake at the sound of an owl hooting nearby. I watch the owl fly past, a silent shape against the dark sky, and I wonder briefly if it will compete with me for the mice and voles in this area, though I know that the owl hunts different prey at different times and that there is enough for both of us. Before dawn, I return to the meadow and retrieve the cached vole from earlier in the night. The cache is undisturbed, and I eat the vole in a few bites. The sky is beginning to lighten in the east, and I know that I must return to a safe resting place before full daylight. I trot back along the familiar trails, crossing the stream again, passing through the forest, and arriving at a den site that I use occasionally, an old badger set with several entrances. I slip into one of the entrances and move down the tunnel to a chamber lined with dry grass and moss. I circle several times, then settle down, curling tightly with my tail over my nose. I close my eyes and drift into sleep, my body relaxed but my senses still subtly attuned to any danger. In the months of winter, my life becomes more challenging. Food is scarce, and I must hunt longer and harder to meet my energy needs. Snow covers the ground, insulating the voles and mice in their burrows and making them harder to detect, though my hearing is still acute, and I can often locate prey beneath the snow by sound. I hunt during the day more often in winter, taking advantage of any opportunity when the weather is clear and the light is good. I scavenge more, seeking out carcasses of deer that have died from cold, starvation, or predation by wolves or coyotes, and I compete with ravens, crows, and other scavengers for access to these resources. My winter coat is thick and insulating, and I am well adapted to the cold, but prolonged exposure to extreme temperatures and wind can be taxing, and I seek shelter more frequently, using dens, dense vegetation, or even snow burrows that I dig myself. I lose weight during the hardest part of winter, drawing on fat reserves built up in autumn, and by late winter, I am lean and hungry, eager for the arrival of spring. Spring is a time of renewal and intense activity. The breeding season is over, and my mate and I, if I am part of a mated pair, focus on raising our pups. I spend much of my time hunting to provide food for the vixen and the growing pups, carrying prey back to the den multiple times each night. I am more defensive of the den area, and I am quicker to investigate disturbances and to confront intruders. I watch the pups emerge from the den and begin to explore, and I feel, if a fox can be said to feel in a way analogous to human emotion, a drive, an imperative to ensure their survival. I play with them, gently mouthing and wrestling, and I bring them live prey to practice killing, watching as they pounce clumsily and learn through trial and error. As summer arrives, food becomes abundant. The meadows and forests are full of rodents, the bird nests are full of eggs and chicks, the insects are everywhere, and the first fruits begin to ripen. I hunt efficiently and I eat well, regaining the weight I lost in winter and building up reserves. The pups grow rapidly and they begin to follow me on hunting trips, watching and learning. I show them how to stalk, how to listen, how to pounce, and how to kill quickly and cleanly. I teach them, not through conscious instruction but through example and repetition, and they learn by observation and imitation, honing their skills with each passing week. By late summer, the pups are nearly independent and my parental duties are waning. I continue to tolerate their presence in the territory, but I am less patient with their demands for food, and I increasingly ignore their begging. They must learn to fend for themselves, and most will succeed, though some will not. The family bond, which was strong in spring and early summer, begins to loosen, and by autumn, the young foxes will disperse, and I will return to the rhythm of my solitary existence or to the companionship of my mate, depending on the social structure of my population. Autumn is a time of preparation. The days shorten, the nights grow longer and colder, and I sense the approach of winter. I hunt intensively, feeding on the abundant fruits and the fat rodents that are also preparing for winter, and I cache food in many locations across my territory, burying mice, voles, and larger prey items in shallow scrapes. I groom my summer coat, and I begin to grow the thick winter pelage that will protect me in the months ahead. I mark my territory more frequently, renewing the scent boundaries and reaffirming my claim to this patch of ground. My family perspective, if I am a vixen raising pups, is centered on their survival. From the moment I give birth, my focus narrows to the needs of my offspring. I keep them warm, nurse them frequently, groom them to stimulate digestion and removal of waste, and I am hypervigilant for threats. I listen constantly for the approach of predators, and I am prepared to defend the den or to move the pups to an alternate den if danger is imminent. Moving pups is a delicate operation, and I carry them one at a time in my mouth, gripping them gently by the scruff and transporting them to the new location. This may take several trips and it leaves the pups vulnerable during the moves, but it is necessary if the den is compromised. As the pups grow and become more active, my vigilance continues, but I also begin to teach them the skills they will need. I bring them live prey, releasing injured or young animals near the den entrance and allowing the pups to chase, catch, and kill them. This is a critical part of their education, and pups that do not learn to hunt effectively are less likely to survive after dispersal. I watch them play fight, and I intervene if the aggression becomes too intense, breaking up fights and disciplining overly aggressive individuals with a growl or a nip. I am not a permissive parent, and I enforce a hierarchy among the pups, often favoring the largest or most assertive, though I do not abandon weaker pups unless resources are extremely scarce. If I am a helper vixen, a non-breeding female assisting my mother or sister in raising pups, my role is somewhat different. I do not nurse the pups, but I bring food, guard the den, and play with the pups, and I gain experience that will serve me well if I eventually breed myself. My presence increases the survival rate of the pups, and this is a benefit to my own genetic fitness, as the pups are my siblings or nieces and nephews, and share a significant proportion of my genes. This cooperative behavior is an example of kin selection, a mechanism by which behaviors that benefit relatives can evolve even if they do not directly benefit the individual performing them. If I am a dog fox, my role in pup rearing is primarily as a provider. I do not nurse, and I spend less time at the den than the vixen, but I hunt extensively and bring food to the vixen and later to the pups. I defend the territory against intruders, and I am particularly aggressive toward other males, which I perceive as threats to my reproductive success. I may also play with the pups, though less frequently than the vixen, and I help to socialize them and teach them through example. My investment in the pups is substantial, and studies using genetic markers have shown that the territorial male is almost always the father of the litter, indicating that my investment is directed toward my own offspring. As the pups mature and disperse, the family unit dissolves or contracts back to the adult pair, and the cycle begins again. The dispersing juveniles face the most dangerous period of their lives, navigating unfamiliar terrain, avoiding predators and territorial adults, and searching for a place to settle. Some will travel far, crossing landscapes and even swimming rivers, while others will settle nearby if they can find a vacant territory. Mortality during dispersal is high, and many young foxes are killed by vehicles, predators, disease, or starvation. Those that survive and establish themselves enter the adult population and have the potential to reproduce, continuing the cycle. My relationship with other species is varied and complex. I interact with many species as prey, predator, competitor, or simply as a neighbor. I prey on a vast array of animals as I have described, and each prey species has its own defenses and strategies. Rodents rely on speed, agility, and the complexity of their burrow systems. Birds rely on flight, vigilance, and the protection of nests in trees or dense vegetation. Insects rely on small size, cryptic coloration, and in some cases, chemical defenses. I must constantly adapt my hunting techniques to the behavior and defenses of my prey, and this keeps my skills sharp and my mind engaged. As prey myself, I am constantly vigilant. I watch for the approach of wolves, coyotes, and large raptors, and I listen for the sounds that signal danger. I use my speed and agility to escape, and I take refuge in dens, dense cover, or water if pursued. My survival depends on my ability to detect and evade these threats, and my senses and reflexes are finely tuned to this purpose. I compete with other predators for food, and the outcome of these interactions depends on size, numbers, and circumstances. I am subordinate to wolves and coyotes, and I avoid them when possible. If I encounter a coyote, I may flee, or if cornered, I may stand my ground and use vocalizations and threat displays to deter an attack, though this is risky. I am more evenly matched with badgers, and in some regions, badgers and foxes share den systems, though the relationship is sometimes tense. Badgers are larger and more powerful than I am, and they can kill me if they choose, but they are also slower and less agile, and I can usually avoid them. I compete with raptors such as hawks, owls, and eagles for rodents, and with corvids such as ravens, crows, and magpies for carrion and other food. These interactions are usually resolved through dominance displays or by one party yielding, though occasionally there are direct confrontations. I also have relationships with species that are neither prey nor predator. I may encounter deer, which I do not hunt as adults but whose fawns I may prey upon if the opportunity arises. I may encounter domestic animals such as cats and dogs, and these interactions can be neutral, agonistic, or rarely fatal. Domestic cats are usually wary of me, and I am generally not interested in them as prey, though I may kill a cat if it is sick, injured, or cornered, and there are documented cases of fox predation on cats, particularly kittens. Dogs are more of a threat to me than I am to them, and I avoid dogs whenever possible, though I may defend myself if attacked. There are also cases of foxes and domestic dogs, particularly small breeds, interacting peacefully, even playing together, particularly in urban areas where both are habituated to human presence. I may also encounter livestock such as chickens, ducks, sheep, and goats. My interactions with chickens are almost always predatory, as chickens are easy prey and I am opportunistic. My interactions with sheep are more complex. I am often blamed for killing lambs, and I do take lambs on occasion, but research suggests that most lamb predation occurs on weak, sick, or dead lambs, and that healthy lambs are less vulnerable. Nonetheless, farmers understandably view me as a threat, and I am subject to control measures in many agricultural areas. My ecological role as a mesopredator, a mid-sized predator, means that I am influenced by both top predators above me and by the prey and smaller predators below me in the food web. In systems where top predators such as wolves are absent, I may become more abundant, a phenomenon known as mesopredator release, and this can have cascading effects on prey populations and ecosystem structure. In systems where top predators are present, I am suppressed, and my populations are lower, which can benefit some prey species but may also allow other mesopredators or prey populations to increase. These dynamics illustrate the interconnectedness of ecosystems and the importance of understanding species interactions at multiple levels. My cognitive abilities are considerable, and I am capable of learning, problem-solving, and adapting to new situations. I learn from experience, and I modify my behavior based on success and failure. If a particular hunting technique works, I use it more often. If a particular area is dangerous or unproductive, I avoid it. I remember the locations of food caches, and I can relocate them days or weeks later, a feat that requires spatial memory and mental mapping. I can also solve novel problems, such as how to access food that is enclosed or protected, and I have been observed manipulating objects, digging in non-obvious locations, and using trial and error to achieve goals. My adaptability is perhaps my greatest asset. I thrive in environments that are changing rapidly due to human activities, and I exploit new opportunities as they arise. Urbanization, agricultural expansion, and habitat fragmentation create challenges for many species, but I often benefit, finding abundant food, fewer natural predators, and shelter in human-modified landscapes. This adaptability has allowed me to expand my range and increase my populations in many areas, even as other species decline. However, my success is not without costs. High-density populations can lead to increased competition, stress, and disease transmission, and in some urban areas, fox populations may be limited by disease, particularly sarcoptic mange, which spreads rapidly in dense populations. My reliance on human-provided food can also make me vulnerable to changes in human behavior, such as increased use of secure bins or changes in waste management practices, and it can lead to dependence on low-quality foods that may affect my health and reproductive success. Despite my adaptability and success, I am not invulnerable, and my future is uncertain in some regions. Climate change is altering habitats, prey availability, and the distribution of diseases and parasites, and the long-term effects on red fox populations are difficult to predict. Continued habitat loss, intensification of agriculture, and increasing human populations will likely create new challenges, and my ability to adapt will be tested. In Australia, my status as an invasive species means that I face ongoing control efforts, and my populations may decline in areas where control is intensive and sustained, though eradication is unlikely without novel technologies or approaches. In regions where I am native, conservation efforts are generally not focused on me, as I am abundant and not considered threatened, but I may benefit from broader conservation initiatives that protect habitats, reduce pesticide use, and manage ecosystems holistically. Efforts to control rabies and other diseases through vaccination have benefited both foxes and humans, and these programs are examples of successful wildlife management. Public attitudes toward me are diverse and often contradictory. I am admired for my beauty, intelligence, and adaptability, and I am a popular subject in wildlife documentaries, literature, and art. I am also feared or disliked by some people who view me as a pest, a predator, or a threat. Education and outreach are important in fostering coexistence, and efforts to inform the public about my ecology, behavior, and role in ecosystems can help reduce conflicts and promote more nuanced understanding. There are many myths and misconceptions about me that persist. One is that I am primarily a scavenger and do not hunt, when in fact I am an active and skilled predator. Another is that I am nocturnal and never seen during the day, when in fact I am crepuscular and can be active at any time, particularly in areas with little disturbance. A third is that I am always solitary, when in fact I can form social groups and cooperative relationships. A fourth is that I am dirty or disease-ridden, when in fact I groom regularly and most individuals are healthy, though like all wild animals, I can carry parasites and pathogens. A fifth is that I am dangerous to humans, when in fact I am generally shy and avoid contact, and attacks on humans are extremely rare. Another misconception is that I am an introduced species throughout my range, when in fact I am native to most of the northern hemisphere and only introduced in Australia and a few other locations. There is also a belief that I always kill more than I can eat and waste food, when in fact surplus killing is a specific behavior that occurs under certain circumstances, typically when prey is abundant, confined, and easily captured, and I often cache surplus prey for later consumption. Finally, there is a belief that controlling fox populations through hunting or culling is an effective and necessary management tool, when in fact research has shown that fox populations are highly resilient, and culling often has little long-term effect on numbers, as populations recover rapidly through increased reproduction and immigration from surrounding areas. My story is one of adaptability, resilience, and survival in a rapidly changing world. I am a product of millions of years of evolution, shaped by natural selection to be a versatile and effective predator and scavenger. I am also a product of the present, navigating landscapes dominated by humans, exploiting the opportunities they provide, and enduring the threats they pose. I am neither villain nor hero, neither pest nor treasure, but simply an animal, doing what animals do, seeking food, shelter, mates, and the continuation of my lineage. I am a red fox, and I will continue to thrive as long as there are spaces for me to live, prey for me to hunt, and the adaptability to change with the world around me. My future is uncertain, as is the future of all wild species in the Anthropocene. But for now, I persist, a flash of russet in the shadows, a cry in the night, a pair of eyes gleaming in the darkness, a reminder that wildness endures even in the heart of the human-dominated world.